Today it's the year 2025 AD, which is the 2025th year counted from the birth of Jesus Christ according to the Anno Domini system. And with a little subtraction from the year you were born, you can get exactly how old you are, even right to the exact month and date, thanks to the universal dating system and record keeping. It is easy to assume that ancient people used similar simple calculations to figure out their age. However, this was not the case. In ancient times, there was no universal dating system. Before the AD system made its way through Europe in the Middle Ages, people born around the same ancient time in different places were most likely to have different ages due to the differences in the dating system in their regions. Most historical societies had counting systems, which were important for tracking the cycles of the sun and the moon to determine agricultural seasons, mark festivals, and set time frames for public affairs, paying less significant attention to how old they were. Ancient Greeks, for example, did not practice a universal dating system like we now do. In fact, almost every Greek polis had its own dating system, just like it had its own calendar. In Athens, for example, significant occasions are noted based on the name of the archon who held office during that period. For example, we might say, Americans got independence in the year 1776, but an ancient Greek would say, it happened in the year when Timocles was archon. So when a child is born, without any record of the exact month, they will note the year by the name of the top government official in office, and the name differs in Sparta and Argos. Such a variety of dating systems caused great difficulties for ancient Greeks to note precisely their exact age and number, but it's easy to conclude that the first child was born when the third archon was in position, and the second child when he was executed or when the new archon was appointed. Imagine your parents telling you at some point how old you were by counting how long the high priestess of Hera has held the title because you were born in Argos and you were born on the 12th year of her being in power. The best-known Greek attempt at a systematic chronology was the Olympiad system, proposed by the historian Timaeus and systematized by Eratosthenes in the 3rd century BC. This system dated birth records relative to the Olympic Games, which were held every 4 years, beginning, according to Eratosthenes' calculations, in 776 BC. Thus, an event that happened in 480 BC fell in the 75th Olympiad. The Olympiad system was useful for historians, but it never became a standard comparable to our modern era system, and it seems it was not used in everyday life. The only Greek birth dating system that could be more accurate and which also remotely resembled the modern one was used by the Seleucids, the dynasty that inherited the central portion of Alexander's empire. The first year of the Seleucid era corresponded to 312 to 311 BC in our terms and marked the conquest of Babylon by Seleucus I. So anyone born in this era could still have a relatively correct birth date, which is in correspondence with the generally acceptable dating system of the time. Since it was used for a long time and outlived the Seleucids themselves, it survived even after the Arab conquests and was still used by the Jewish community in Yemen until the 20th century. In Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization, age tracking was a blend of sophisticated record-keeping and practical approximation. Mesopotamian societies like the Sumerians and Babylonians developed cuneiform, one of the earliest writing systems, etched onto clay tablets. For elites, royalty, nobles, or high priests, births were sometimes meticulously recorded, preserving details like the year a child was born relative to significant events. A scribe might note, for instance, that a noble's son was born in the 3rd year of King Hammurabi, tying age to the regnal years of a ruler, a common practice in a region where kings' reigns served as temporal anchors. Beyond written records, the Mesopotamians relied on lunar calendars, which tracked years through cycles of the moon, with roughly 12 lunar months equating to a year. This system allowed for broader timekeeping, though it was less precise for pinpointing exact ages due to the lunar year's slight misalignment with the solar year. For commoners, who rarely had access to written records, age was often estimated through memory, tied to memorable events like a great flood or a temple's construction. The contrast between elite precision and commoner approximation highlights how social status shaped access to timekeeping in Mesopotamia. Across the Mediterranean, ancient Egypt developed its own sophisticated methods, deeply intertwined with the rhythms of nature and the cosmos. The Egyptians' 365-day solar calendar, one of the earliest of its kind, was based on the heliacal rising of Sirius, the brightest star, which coincided with the annual flooding of the Nile, a lifeblood event for their agriculture. This calendar allowed for relatively precise age tracking, especially for pharaohs and nobles, whose births were often recorded in hieroglyphs on temple walls or papyrus scrolls. Priests, tasked with maintaining religious and administrative records, tracked ages to determine eligibility for sacred roles, such as entering the priesthood at a specific age. For the average Egyptian, however, age was often approximated by counting the Nile's annual floods, a natural metronome for their world. A villager might proudly declare, "I was born during the flood of the 10th year of Pharaoh Thutmose," anchoring their life to a ruler's reign and the river's cycle. This blend of astronomical precision and environmental cues made Egypt's age tracking both practical and poetic, reflecting a culture that saw time as a divine gift. In ancient China, where genealogy and ancestor worship were cornerstones of society, tracking age was a matter of familial and cultural significance. The Chinese developed a lunar solar calendar that combined moon phases with solar years, achieving a remarkable balance of accuracy that rivaled modern systems. Elite families maintained detailed genealogical records, often inscribed on bamboo strips or silk, documenting births to preserve lineage and honor ancestors. For scholars and officials, age might be referenced to an emperor's reign, such as being born in the year of the dragon during the Han Dynasty. The 12-year Chinese zodiac cycle, with its iconic animals, provided a cultural shorthand for approximating age, especially among the less literate. A farmer might say, "I was born in the year of the ox," giving a rough estimate within a 12-year window. This system, while less precise for commoners, embedded age within a cosmic and cyclical view of time, where each year carried spiritual significance. The emphasis on family records and zodiac cycles underscores how age tracking in China was as much about heritage as it was about chronology. Far across the ocean, the Mesoamerican civilizations of the Maya and Aztec crafted some of the most intricate timekeeping systems in the ancient world, rooted in their cosmological beliefs. The Mayas' long count calendar was a masterpiece of precision, tracking time across vast cycles, with dates recorded in a complex system of katuns and baktuns. Elite births, especially of nobles or priests, were meticulously documented, often as specific as born on 8 Ahau, 3rd year of the Katun, tying an individual's life to the sacred rhythms of the cosmos. The Aztecs, meanwhile, used the Tonal Poali, a 260-day ritual calendar where a person's birth date carried spiritual weight, influencing their name and destiny. Commoners in both societies, lacking access to such elaborate systems, relied on oral traditions, marking births against dramatic events like solar eclipses or wars. A Maya farmer might recall being born after the Great Eclipse, a vivid but imprecise marker. These methods reveal how Mesoamerican age tracking was not just practical but deeply spiritual, with time and age interwoven with the divine. In contrast, oral and nomadic societies, such as those across the Eurasian steppes or African savannas, relied on memory and nature's cycles, as they often lacked writing or formal calendars. Elders and storytellers served as living archives, memorizing births relative to significant events, a drought, a great fire, or a victorious battle. A nomadic herder might say, "She was born 2 winters after the Great Fire," using environmental cues like seasons or animal migrations to estimate age. In these cultures, exact years often mattered less than life stages, puberty, first hunt, or marriage, marked by rituals that defined one's place in the community. This approach, while less precise, was profoundly adaptive, allowing pre-literate societies to maintain a sense of time in harmony with their environment. The reliance on oral tradition and natural markers highlights the resilience of human memory in the absence of written records. The methods of age tracking in ancient civilizations reveal a spectrum of human creativity, from the cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia to the star-guided calendars of Egypt and Mesoamerica and the oral traditions of nomadic tribes. Each system was shaped by the tools and values of its society: writing for elites, nature for commoners, and cosmology for the spiritually inclined. These practices not only mark the passage of years, but also defined social roles, from warriors to priests, and preserved legacies across generations. Nevertheless, people were around elders or extended family who knew them. So if you forget the exact year, there's going to be someone else who knows that you're a year younger or older than this significant event that happened, or that you were born the year after this or that event occurred.